Pastor Brian. How are you today? I'm glad to hear that. I'm doing well too, and I'm really glad you suggested that we record early today on Wednesday because of Synod Assembly. It's a great idea, so I appreciate you bringing that forward, and that we set that time to be here and be together. So thanks for doing that and making sure all this comes together beautifully. I think that is a wonderful thing. So. Has anybody you ever seen the theater production called Harvey? It's about the main character, Elwood P. Dowd, who his best friend is an imaginary 6-foot rabbit. Jimmy Stewart did the movie, as a matter of fact, and I feel like I'm having a Harvey moment. Harvey's the name of the rabbit, and so I kind of feel like that talking to my friend here sitting in the blue chair. And if you can't see him, I don't know what to tell you, but he's doing just fine. So got a couple of things going on. As we said on Tuesday, we're pre-recording this today on Wednesday because of the fact that we're hosting Synod Assembly. We have 300 folks showing up, and by the time we hit 3 o'clock on Thursday, we are already in the first session, which is a business meeting, like a congregational meeting, and our first session begins at 2 on Thursday. So, and because we're hosting, I can't dodge out and do something else, or in Pastor Brian for that matter. So we just kind of said, if we're gonna be here for you, and we want to be, we have to do this one day ahead of time. And as I said on Tuesday, we prefer to be live because we know that you're watching live most of the time. A lot of you are. And we just like being kind of connected in that moment. So, this is just one of those few times that practicality dictates that we can't be in two places at once. And we also have responsibilities at Synod Assembly. So that means that if we had nothing, we could kind of run away for a little bit and nobody'd notice, but in this case they would notice. So so we're doing this, and the last 3 days have been all about setup, moving tables, moving chairs. And one of the things I learned this week is that if we are going to have a sit down meal for 300 people, the fellowship hall does not contain enough room for tables and chairs for 300 people. We can do 250 pretty easily. I mean, it's filled up at 250, but 300, we actually are spilled out into the crossroads area, which means we had to move the info desk, and we slid it over. And what I'll do is I'll probably try to take a picture of it so that next week you all can see how we rearrange things to make this work. And now get this, later on Thursday, we will be in session. All of our musicians and instrumentalists and vocalists are showing up, and in the afternoon, while we're having the business meeting in the sanctuary, they're going to be in the chapel, and they're going to start practicing, and they've been practicing, but kind of the last practice. And then as soon as we are done at 5 o'clock, I will run over to the chapel and say, the sanctuary is yours. And then they got an hour and 45 minutes to get all the sound kind of set up, and last minute practice in the sanctuary when we open the doors at 6:45 and then show at 7. So, and while we're doing that, all the people who are there for the conference, we're feeding them dinner. There's a lot of moving parts today. Thursday is a busy day. Now, Friday we have meetings until 3, same meeting, but what changes is we're bringing in box lunches, so all we really have to do is set out box lunches for Friday, but today, Thursday, we're actually, Linda's cooking for everybody, so quite a challenge, but all good. And I think I mentioned this, but I want to make sure I do. So once we finish with Synod Assembly, we have to clean up and get ready for the weekend. And we're going to have a big weekend in worship, and some last minute additions to music at 8 and 9:30, which are going to be amazing. And then we are going to rip out some chairs on Sunday afternoon. so that we can recarpet the sanctuary. Just a few things going on. That's all. But all is good, and I will tell you that Linda, our glitter team, Dennis, our custodial staff, our music folks, all of our folks, Phil and Keith and Robbie, and then all the other people, that we're all working towards that same goal of creating a hospitable, warm, welcoming, inclusive, radical grace kind of experience for this assembly, this Synod assembly, which is, I think it's always good to put our best foot forward whenever we have people in the building. And I think that is huge. So that's where we're at. Now, with that being said, one of the things that we had this past week, we showed you on Tuesday, played a song that Ashley and Robbie did called The Commission, which I told you is kind of one of my new favorite songs. But the song you're going to hear in just a little bit is one of Philip's favorite songs by one of his favorite composers. Not the favorite, but one of his favorites. And he really likes this song. And there's a great story that goes along with the song you're about to hear. So let's go back to 9:30 and let's take a listen. And then when we come back, we'll talk about it. Isn't that great? I love that. That is so beautiful. I get the feeling that could also be sung without, I mean, utilize choir, but I think that could be sung by a soloist too. So the song's called Total Praise. And what I tell you about it is written by a gentleman by the name of Richard Smallwood. It was first recorded in 1996 on an album called Adoration Live in Atlanta. And it has become one of Richard Smallwood's most popular songs. Now, he wrote the song. This is the fascinating backstory on this song. Is he wrote the song when he was being a caregiver to his mother, who was suffering from dementia, and at the same time he was doing that, he also was had a family friend who was dying of cancer. So a lot of turmoil and a lot of struggle, and that takes a lot of energy. It also takes a lot of emotional energy, and so that's where he was at when this song was written. And he said that he explained, and I'm going to read what he said. He said, I felt left by God, left behind. And I was trying to write a pity party song. So he's in the midst of his mom's dementia, a family friend had cancer, and he's like, I'm going to write a sad song and have a little pity party. And he said, but God pulled me, literally pulled me, to do a praise song. And God said, and this is his reflection, I want your praise no matter what the situation you are in, good or bad. And that's what he heard God saying to him. And he said, it's about trusting him. So what you may or may not have picked up on is it is based on, or it comes from, Psalm 121, which King David wrote. And it's a psalm reflecting on where do you look for help when times are tough. And that's where I want to begin today, is Psalm 121. I'm not going to read all of it, but the beginning of it, and it might sound familiar because it is a well-known psalm. It says, I lift my eyes to the hills, and where does my help come from? As you may or may not guess, you drive around the valley of Las Vegas, and in any direction that you are pointing in, you will see mountains. You got the Sheep Gate in the north, and Sunrise/Frenchman in the east, and you have the Black Mountains in the south, and then the Spring Mountains in the west. And so wherever you're at in the valley, you can see mountains. And mountains are majestic. They are grand in a lot of ways compared to human-made structures. And, you might look to the hills and say, how beautiful and how big and how majestic. And you go, but are those beautiful things, those created things, going to give me any help? And the psalmist, King David, answers. He says, no, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth, the maker of the mountains, the maker of all the beautiful things that we see in our world, not the created things. And I think that's a great reminder from David, but it's also, when it's utilized here in the song, Lord, I will lift my eyes to the hills, knowing my help is coming from you, not from the mountains or the hills, and that you give me peace, or your peace you give me in the time of the storm, and that you are my source of strength. And as I was thinking about this whole idea of giving total praise, and we were talking about using this song, and when I think about the words of Richard Smallwood, and I think about my own experience, and maybe yours too, is the only way that it is possible, at least for me, to give praise in any and all situations, is being able to remember what God has done in my life. I mean, I don't mean in history. I mean, make it very selfish. The only way I can praise God is to think about the things that God has done in my life. Maybe not in that current moment if life is a struggle, but if we don't remember those things, and what happens is we focus in on the one thing that's not going right, or the multiple things not going right in a moment, and that becomes our entire world, right? Because we're magnifying it. We're bringing it up close and making it big. And so what happens is praise will go out the window, and well, in the words of Richard, I'm going to have a pity party, and I'm going to write a song about a pity party, right? And until you back up and kind of remove yourself farther away from that problem or that issue, that struggle or that hard thing, you're not going to be able to praise, or it will be severely limited. And so finding comfort and strength in that hard time is also about kind of returning to the one who can help navigate those issues in life, as opposed to I'm only looking at the bad thing and I'm only looking at the hard thing. And so I don't have time to praise. I don't want to praise. All I see in my windshield is the bad stuff. So to praise is about backing up a little bit, even in the hard times, to remember how God has been faithful in your life throughout the years and over the years. And I think that's one of those things. And I'm telling you, it's hard because in a moment that you're struggling, you don't want to back up. You want to say, no, this stinks. I hate this. This is terrible. God, where are you? And you want to wallow in it. I mean, that's what happens. I do it. I think we all do it. And so it's about catching ourselves to say, okay, this is hard, but this is just a moment in our lives and not the entirety of our lives. I mean, even when you kind of take it to the extreme and you get to the end of your life, you know, that's not even the end. As a Christian, as a child of God, you go, oh, woe is me, it's the end of my life. No, it's actually just the beginning. So even as a story, one chapter of the story ends, there's still another chapter. And that is true even when we come to the end and we're ready to take our last breath. There's still another chapter to be written. And and even David, King David, knows about some of the struggles in life. He writes about them, and in one of his, the most famous psalm, he mentions these hard things, like, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, like, even when life stinks to the point where I think I'm going to die, he says, I fear no evil, because God is with me. And he's using this shepherd imagery, right? So his rod and his staff, they comfort me. And you go, oh, God's offering protection, because a shepherd carried a staff and a rod to scare away the coyotes and the bobcats and the bears and the other things that might attack a flock. And we're the sheep, we're the flock. So he's like reminding us that God's like a shepherd and he's going to protect us in those hard times. And then he goes on to say, I mean, you think about it, like, oh, that's one thing, but listen to this. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. I can't imagine a worse evening than sitting at a dinner party with people I don't like, right? It's like, get me out of here. I just want to be anywhere else. I've had to not even a dinner party, but I've had to share a table once at a composer showcase that was horrible, and couldn't wait to get out of that situation. So so even David's like, could you imagine being at a dinner party with a bunch of people you don't want to be with? Why, yes, I can, King David, because I've been there, right? But what does he say? He says, though, even in that moment, he says, God anoints my head with oil and my cup overflows. So it's that duality of, sometimes life can stink. He said, but even in that moment, you're anointed, which means you are still a chosen child of God. That's what anointed means. And then secondly, don't forget God's abundance in the moment that you think it is lacking. My cup overflows. God's blessing is still there if you're willing to look for it. So I love that comparison, because I think often we overlook that part of that psalm. And the other part that I really like in Psalm 23, which is kind of off topic, but it's still in the Bible, so I'm not in trouble, is that one about, you put me in paths of righteousness for your name's sake. And I love that one, because what it's saying is God's going to put me and put you exactly where you need to be in any given moment, because you never know what God's plan is about. but yet he's going to put you in places for relationship, paths of righteousness, paths of relationship for his name's sake. So God's putting you in places to grow your relationship with him and also connect with others. And I love that idea. And I know it's like fancy Bible language, but it's all about God. God saying in that psalm, God has a plan, and he has you right where he wants you. And never second guess that, because sometimes I know this recent term in the last 5 years, FOMO, fear of missing out, and that people don't want to miss out on the big thing or the new thing or whatever that thing is. And yet, Psalm 23 reminds us, God puts us where we need to be in a moment, in a day, in a season, in a period of our life. We got to trust that, and not wish yourself to be here, there, or anywhere else, but be in that moment and be fully engaged. And I think that is huge. And then I want to finish with this psalm, just a verse of this psalm, because it goes back to something I said earlier about being able to have total praise in every moment. And it is this, Psalm 103, verse 2. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and here it is, and forget not all his benefits. Oh, we got to remember what God is doing in our lives in the past. If the current moment is a struggle, remember all his benefits, all that he has done. And if you can do that, then that praise can come even in that hard time. Another psalm, and I didn't write it down, but the sorrow may last for the night, but joy comes in the morning. That God says there's something more, and don't finish the story until God gets to write it. And I think that's huge. So, lots of things going on, but we're going to do Synod Assembly the next 2 days. Get this, I'm going to just catch you up on my life. My mother-in-law is coming into town, and today's Wednesday while we're recording this, but coming into town, and she's spending the next couple of nights, and then Rachel and her mom are heading towards Milwaukee to visit Molly, our oldest, over the weekend. And so they're going to have a girls' weekend in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because that's where Molly lives. And so I'm going to be a bachelor on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I don't know if they come back on Sunday or Monday, but we'll find out. So clearly, I have enough stuff on my schedule that I will stay out of trouble until they get home, because there's not a moment of free time between now and then anyway. So, but we're going to finish off Synod Assembly, get through all that. Don't forget the concert on Thursday night. So if you're watching today, it would be tonight at 7 o'clock. It will be on our website. So it's not going to be on Facebook. It's not going to be anywhere else. Go to the church website and go to the watch page, and that's where you can catch the concert. And we will record it, and it'll be up there for later as well. But we don't want you to miss it, because it's going to be inspirational and wonderful. But thanks for joining me today, and thanks for joining Pastor Brian too. I know he is so thankful that you are tuned in today too. So anyways, take care. God bless you. We love you. And Philip, will you play us out?